Welcome to the channel. Today, we're exploring some unbelievable story. Stay tuned and let's dive in. My name is Michael Hoot, and this is my tale. I presently live in a studio apartment, but that wasn't always the case. A year ago, I had a 4-bedroom home, 2 vehicles, a mortgage, and a wife who adored me. We had been married for 5 years and were hoping to create a family after we had saved enough money so that Sophia, my wife, could stop her work and stay at home with the kid. All of this happened before my younger brother, Ethan, moved in with us. My brother had just been laid off and lived across the nation from the rest of the family. He had been feeling lonely and decided now was an excellent moment to return home and start again. He didn't have much money and had only been working for a few years, so he was always a bit irresponsible with his spending. He didn't want to move in with his parents, so he asked if he could remain with Sophia and me until he found a job in his own apartment. I asked Sophia, and she was excited to have Ethan stay with us. She had always loved him and thought he was humorous, and since we had additional bedrooms, it was okay. I thanked her for being so accommodating, and the trade was completed. 1 month later, Ethan moved in. He expressed gratitude for our hospitality and pledged not to restrict our style too much. The routine around the home shifted somewhat, but mostly for the better. Ethan worked around the home and in the yard when he wasn't looking for employment, which made things simpler for Sophia and me. He also cooked sometimes, which Sophia much loved. We spent our nights watching TV, movies, or playing games, and it was great to have my brother home again. We'd travel to our parents' house for cookouts, and Ethan would be the focus of attention for a while since he had been gone so long. My mother adored him, but I understood, after all, he was the baby and had always been close to Mom. Things proceeded smoothly, except that the employment market in our region was harsh, and Ethan was having difficulty finding work. He felt compelled to do more, since it seemed that his stay with us might be longer than he had anticipated. He offered to take up all outdoor tasks and even assist with the household. I found this incredibly useful since I was working on a project that was taking up more of my time than I wanted. One night, I was sitting in the living room with my brother, watching television. Sophia was out with some friends, so it was just us. "Ethan, how is the job search going?" she asked. "I've been working late these last few days and we haven't talked in a while. I've got a lot of resumes out that I have to follow up on in a few days, but so far, no luck," Ethan grumbled, taking a drink of his cola. "I hear you, brother. The employment market is challenging right now, but you have a solid track record and a positive outlook. I am confident you will have that interview shortly. I had a taste of my Coke as well. Any success with dating?" Ethan stared at me like I was crazy. "Dating front? What about the dating front? I'm here working when I'm not on interviews or at the library, and I spend my nights at home with you and Sophia." Ethan laughed bitterly. "The only action I'm getting is from Mary Palm and her 5 sisters. You don't have to stay here every night, you understand. You should get out and meet people. Networking may benefit you in more ways than one." "Perhaps I will. I'll have to check at groups that could be relevant to my profession. Who knows? Maybe I'll meet a lovely lady too." Having my brother around hampered our love life, but not much. We were never the kind of pair to leap into bed at the drop of a hat, despite having named every room when we first moved here. However, our love life was going well. We'd have sex 3 or 4 times a week, preferably on weekends when we had more time and were more relaxed. We began having sex in the afternoons on weekends when Ethan was away, or would have it discreetly before going to bed when he stayed up late to watch a movie. Despite our best attempts, having Ethan around limited our playtime. After 6 months, we had gone from 3 or 4 times per week to 3 or 4 times per month. I didn't know about Sophia, but I was becoming agitated. I wasn't thrilled with the additional work I'd been doing over the last several months and the decline in the frequency of our sex life. I decided to take action, so I booked a reservation at a bed and breakfast we had visited approximately a year earlier for the next weekend. I had planned to surprise Sophia with a romantic weekend, but that did not happen. "What did you do?" Sophia questioned incredulously. "I made reservations for Sunday and Sunday night at our favorite bed and breakfast," I said excitedly. "For too long, we've neglected ourselves. We need a weekend away to recharge our batteries." Well, I wish you'd checked with me first because I can't go this weekend, Sophia stated with a smile. If you'd listened when I talk, you'd know that I'm already committed to helping your mother with her yard sale all weekend. I'll phone my mother and inform her what's happening. She will understand, I murmured, attempting to calm her down. No, she will not. This is the neighborhood sale and she has been arranging it for months. She's even asked Ethan to assist, so there's no way I'm getting out of this. You take the cake, Michael, she remarked with distaste. Sophia stood up and exited the room, leaving my mouth wide. I phoned to cancel the reservation. Fortunately, it was early enough, so the cancellation cost me nothing. After this little disagreement, our love life stalled. It felt like I couldn't do anything correctly. If I wasn't working too much, I wasn't helping around the home, so poor Ethan had to do everything. I was taken aback, to be honest. Why was Sophia having this attitude towards me? She was aware that I was working on a large project at work that needed a significant amount of overtime. She also knew that Ethan had offered to help around the home since we did not charge him rent. I did not appreciate her attitude and told her so. What in the heck is your issue, Sophia? I don't want to work these sorts of hours. You are also aware that Ethan offered to help around the home since we do not charge him rent. What is the true problem? She asked aggressively. I don't have a problem, Michael, she said, her voice icy. It's clear what's essential in your life, and it's not me. You are aware that we will both have to work to pay for this home. Are you saying you would prefer I leave my job? Is this what you want? No, I simply want you to quit working so darn hard. We never get to go anywhere anymore. So, whose fault is that? You're the one who couldn't let my mother down when I planned a romantic weekend. I was furious now, and the gloves were off. At least I assisted your mother. You didn't do much that weekend but hang around here or play golf. Ethan helped more than you did. Ethan. That's all I've heard recently. If Ethan is so fantastic, why don't you move into his bedroom and leave me alone? I'm sure he'd be delighted to support this property. Oh, I forgot, he's unemployed. I grabbed my jacket and walked out the door, slamming it behind me. I got in the vehicle, went to the neighborhood sports bar, and had a drink throughout the second half of the basketball game. As I sat there, not watching the game, I relived the dispute. We both said things we undoubtedly regretted, but I couldn't understand why she was acting this way. Why was she backing Ethan? I briefly considered the possibility that she was having an affair with Ethan, but I soon rejected the thought. I loved my brother, and he loved me, he would never do anything to me. I didn't think Sophia would either, but her attitude and recent lack of sex made me question. I knew I was irritated, so she must have been as well. I wondered whether she was so irritated that she would try to mend it. I wasn't sure what to do. I had no solid proof that Sophia was up to anything, and I wasn't ready to spend a lot of time following her on a crazy hunch. I had a little voice-activated tape recorder that I could conceal someplace. The difficulty was where to conceal it. I decided to start in the bedroom. If I hadn't gotten anything in a week, I'd move it about the home and see what I might discover. With a strategy in place, I drank my drink and went home. I stepped carefully inside the home, not wishing to disturb anybody who was sleeping. I hoped Sophia was also sleeping since I didn't want to deal with her just now. The bedroom door was not locked, so I sneaked in as quietly as possible, stripped naked, and climbed into bed. I rolled over, facing away from Sophia, and fell asleep. When my wife placed her hand on my shoulder, I stiffened. "Michael," she whispered. "Yes?" I answered cautiously. "I apologize, honey. I've been a tremendous nuisance to you, and I'm not sure why you put up with me," she remarked, patting my shoulder and back. "Sophie, I adore you." "That's why," I said, rolling over. Sophia rushed into my arms as soon as I rolled over, kissing me passionately. We had crazy sex. We laid next to each other once we finished. "God, Sophia, that was the best sex we've had in a long time," I said, kissing her nose and smiling. "Maybe we should fight more often." "No way," she said forcefully. "Michael, I detest fighting with you." "I'm so sorry, baby. Will you forgive me?" "Of course, honey." I hate arguing with you, too. I pecked her on the nose again and fell onto my back, bringing her into my arms. She rested her head on my chest while we savored the aftermath. I kissed her head and was astonished to see she had already gone asleep. I closed my eyes and let sleep capture me as well. The following morning, I felt dumb for thinking Sophia was cheating on me. We'd been stuck in a rut, and both of us were upset, taking it out on each other. I resolved never to be such a jerk again. I rolled over and watched Sophia sleep. She was a really lovely lady with shoulder-length sandy blonde hair, green eyes, and a very pleasant body that was curvaceous but not heavy, with all the appropriate curves. "Hi, baby," Sophia smiled as she opened her eyes. "Hello, sexy," I replied, kissing her passionately. "I love you so much, Sophia." She smiled and stroked my face. "I love you too, Michael." She looked over at the clock and tossed back the blankets. "I am going to shower. Do you want to join me?" "Yeah, I'm right behind you." As I entered the restroom, I spotted a mark on her hip. It resembled a bruise, but had an unusual form. "Honey, what happened to your hip?" "It looks like you bruised it," I inquired. Sophia peered behind her but didn't see what I was talking about. She moved up to the mirror and saw the mark I was referring about. She reddened and seemed reluctant to respond. "Oh, I remember now," she said uncomfortably. "I slid in the tub yesterday and hit the soap dish. I didn't believe I would strike myself that hard, but I suppose I did." We began the shower and finished with sex. However, this time she tried something new. Some facts I would like not reveal, but she was unique. The water was becoming chilly, so we got out of the shower and dried ourselves. Sophia rushed up and embraced me hard. "I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Michael. I've been so horny recently. I read several articles on sex and they got me really hot. I hope you do not mind the new me." "Certainly not, honey. Who's going to disagree with a lovely lady who wants to wow her husband with new items?" "I'm not going to," I responded, chuckling. I whacked her on the hip as I made my way into the bedroom. "Hey, watch that," she added with a smirk. "You better get dressed, or we'll be late for work." "Yes, Michael, but you just wait until tonight," she told him. Sophia kept her promise that night, and for many nights thereafter, it seemed as if our sex life had been revived. But there was a difference. Instead of being soft and calm, our lovemaking had become more frenetic and adventurous. I appreciated seeing this new side of my wife, but it made me wonder where it came from. "Sophia," I began after an especially enthusiastic session, "I hope you don't think I'm complaining, but has this new side of you always existed? You never used to be that passionate." "Don't you like it?" she inquired, sounding offended. "Of course I do," I said, attempting to seem optimistic. "I suppose I'm simply curious what prompted this shift in our lovemaking. I am simply interested, that is all." She stared at me, attempting to determine my sincerity. "I suppose I've been talking with a new woman at work," she added cautiously. "She's quite open and honest about everything. After we became friends, she began telling me about her sex life. Some of what she told me made me flush, but it also interested me. I began asking questions and we discussed things that she and her spouse did. She made them sound seductive and I began to think about them a lot. Then I saw that woman's magazine on satisfying your lover in bed, and the content corroborated the majority of what we discussed. I realized I had been a bit of a prude, losing out on a lot of the pleasure we might have had. The issue was that you'd been working a lot and our sex life had diminished. Following our dispute, I resolved to change and begin doing some of the things I'd heard about." "I'm sorry if I worried you, Michael," she replied, running her finger across my chest. "You have to admit, you've changed quite a bit for the better. I'm glad you've chosen to be more honest about things in bed. I adore our sex life, and I couldn't have asked for a finer wife." I kissed her passionately and rolled on top of her. We made gentle, exquisite love again and fell asleep, dreaming of lovers. After living with us for around 10 months, Ethan found a new job and moved out. I was disappointed to see him depart in one direction since it meant I would have to take over the yard work. Actually, I was looking forward to getting our family life back to normal without my brother there. He still came over once or twice a week for supper. Sophia was concerned that he wouldn't eat properly living alone, so he'd have a decent dinner when he ate with us. My project was ultimately completed and my work hours returned to normal, which I much appreciated. Sophia was usually home before I arrived, so dinner was already cooked when I strolled in. On days when Ethan was visiting, he would arrive at the home before me. He'd normally stick there for a few hours before heading home. One night, I arrived home a few minutes earlier than usual, probably due to decreased traffic, and as I went in, I heard what I assumed was a moan. "Sophia!" I called out. "Are you all right, honey?" Sophia hurriedly exited the kitchen, red-faced. "Oh, Michael, you are home early." "I'm okay. I just touched a hot pan," she said as she kissed me. I examined her hand and saw no trace of a burn. "I'm glad you didn't burn yourself badly. You should be more cautious." "I will, honey. Come sit down. Dinner is nearly ready." We stepped into the kitchen and I saw Ethan seated at the table. He had an unusual expression on his face at first, but it faded before I could be certain. We ate as usual and then watched a film that Ethan had brought. When it came time for him to depart, he grabbed his DVD and headed for the door. Sophia stopped him and informed him that she would be sending some leftovers home with him. I said evening and went upstairs. I had time to undress and had been in bed for a few minutes before Sophia arrived upstairs. "What's taken you so long?" she asked. "I'm just getting Ethan some leftovers. I sent a lot home with him," she said as she walked to the restroom. She went in and performed whatever she always did before exiting in her long nightgown. She went into bed and quickly kissed me. "Night, Michael." I was feeling horny that evening, so I leaned in and began kissing her. Sophia moved into my arms, appearing sad. "Honey, I'm exhausted. Can we do it tomorrow?" she asked. I think I replied, "Okay," dissatisfied. I'm probably a little slow on the uptick. It took me 4 more months to realize the trend. Our lovemaking had become commonplace. I'd like to assume it was because the days weren't always the same, but the circumstances were, which is what I should have noticed. I eventually observed that on evenings when my brother arrived, we exclusively had oral sex. Sophia was constantly making excuses for why we couldn't make love, but she was more than eager to care for me in other ways. At first, I didn't think much of it, but it began to seem too familiar. I wouldn't have found it out if Sophia hadn't been wearing that awful long nightgown every time she came out of the restroom. My initial reaction was, "No sex tonight." That's when I realized I'd drawn a link between the nightgown and the absence of sexual activity. We did not have intercourse while she was wearing it. Sophia received the long nightgown for Christmas from her mother one year. She made all the correct sounds while thanking her mother, but she disliked it and seldom wore it. She hadn't done so until quite lately. As I lay there waiting for her to come to bed, I saw that she had been wearing it more and more over the last several months. What really got me thinking was the fact that we didn't have sex while she wore it. I determined to put that hypothesis to the test. "Hey, honey, why don't you put on something seductive and I'll take it off?" I asked huskily. "Not tonight, baby. I do not feel like it." Sophia yawned as she said, "I had a hectic day at work, and all I want to do is sleep." Sleep came slowly for me as I spent the next hour going over the previous weeks and months, attempting to figure out when this had begun and why. I assumed she'd been doing this for well over 6 months, but I still didn't know why. I resolved to be more cautious and observe future incidents in order to find the reason. I was not an investigator or detective, but I needed to know the truth. It took me another month to find out the pattern. There were many things that occurred on the evening Sophia wore the nightgown, but one thing happened every time. Every night she wore her nightgown, I had a blowjob or no sex at all. Ethan had come over for supper on those occasions. The trouble I was having was connecting my brother's absence to our sexual life. It did not make any sense. Ethan had been coming over for supper since he moved out, although seldom on the same night and generally once a week. It had to be the most incredible coincidence in history, or there was something that really linked these two occurrences. Again, stupid chance provided the insight I needed. I had work to do, so I was upstairs in my study when the phone rang. I grabbed it practically simultaneously with Sophia. She was already speaking when I placed the phone to my ear. Hello, Sophia spoke. Hello, Sophia. Can you speak? Ethan asked. Just a minute. Michael is upstairs, working in his study. She muttered, he should be up there for a while. Good. I want you to go down to the laundry room and close the door. Yes, master, she muttered. Master. I wondered what this was. I pushed my palm firmly on the phone so that my breathing would not be audible. It wasn't long before I heard Sophia speak again. I'm here, master. What are you wearing, pet? Ethan inquired, huskily. A blouse, bra, skirt, and shoes, sir, Sophia said. Very nice, pet. Thank you, sir. I wish you were here, sir. I need to feel your hands on my body, Sophia said, desperately. I wish that too, my pet, but for now, you'll have to be content with my words directing you. They were having telephone sex. I heard everything. When they were finished, I heard Sophia's voice. Thank you, master, she responded with evident delight in her voice. I will come over tomorrow at the normal hour. I can't wait to get my hands on your lovely body, pet. I can't wait, master. Take excellent care of Michael tonight. We don't want him to get suspicious, would we? No, sir. We wouldn't. He'd most likely murder both of us if he knew. Do not worry, master. I'll screw his brains out tonight, she laughed. Until tomorrow, pet. Ethan hung up, followed by Sophia. I set down the papers I was working on and started scheming how I would catch them. The following day, I devised a simple strategy. It didn't need much equipment. I'd do it tomorrow night, there's no reason to put it off any longer. When I returned home that night, Ethan was already there reading the newspaper. I smiled at my brother, but it was with ulterior purposes. He smiled back and kept reading the paper. I strolled into the kitchen and kissed Sophia on the lips. Oh, hi, honey, Sophia said. Why don't you wash up? Supper will be ready in a few minutes, she replied, smiling. Okay, I replied on my way to the restroom. Oh, I almost forgot. I have a late work shift tomorrow night, perhaps till 6 to 5 p.m. My employer informed me that we needed to modify some of the calculations for our proposal, which had to be completed by tomorrow. The initial stage of the strategy was in action. Oh, Michael, not again, Sophia sobbed. Don't worry, I've already instructed him not to make it a habit. He told me he understood, and if it hadn't been an emergency, he wouldn't have asked, I added, walking back and hugging her. I'm certain we can handle this one time, can't we? Sophia glanced at me and nodded. Yeah, I suppose. She let go of my arms and returned to her cooking. Go wash up immediately. I'll put the supper on the table. Yes, I smiled as I dashed to the restroom. During dinner, I remarked to Ethan that I would be working late tomorrow. I carefully observed his response, but I had to give him credit, there was no obvious indication that this was good news. I wanted to be sure, so I executed the second half of the plan. Ethan, I'd like to ask you a favor, I said, setting down my fork. What is that, brother? Ethan asked. I was wondering if you don't have anything going on tomorrow, maybe you could come over and keep Sophia company while I'm at work, I said casually. Ethan produced a thoughtful expression and answered, I don't have anything spectacular planned for tomorrow. Sure, I'd love to do it, he answered, smiling. I patted his shoulder and grinned back. Thank you, Ethan. I much appreciate it. Our evening carried on as normal. We completed our meal, filled the dishwasher, and spent a few hours playing cards. Ethan departed at 5 to 5 p.m., and Sophia and I went upstairs to bed after watching the news. I figured today would be a blowjob night since Ethan was gone, and when I saw Sophia emerge from the restroom in her regular nightgown, I knew I was correct. She perched on the edge of the bed, smiling seductively. That night, I just turned over and slept. The following morning, I phoned into work after pulling out of the driveway, informing my supervisor that I would be late due to automobile issues. I had some things to accomplish in the morning to prepare for the big event that evening. I had already packed my digital camera in my briefcase, so my next destination was the hardware shop. I grabbed a tiny bundle of clothesline and a roll of duct tape. I also grabbed a few other items so the cashier wouldn't assume I was going to abduct someone and call the authorities on me. My next trip was the bank, where I withdrew half of our money and created a new account in my name. Next, I phoned the credit card company and informed them that I had misplaced my wallet and wanted to deactivate my card. I requested that they issue one card in my name exclusively and delete the joint account. We had only been in our home for a few years and had little equity beyond our down payment, so we would have to sell. I intended to share the money 45/45 with her. After all, I had loved her before. I wasn't in a rush to hire a lawyer since I knew I'd have enough proof by tonight to make an uncontested divorce the best choice. I was trying to persuade her to draft a settlement ourselves and then engage a lawyer to submit the paperwork. That was my hope, at least. I arrived at work at noon and, to my surprise, accomplished a great deal. I left at my normal hour and went to a restaurant near work for dinner. I wanted it to be dark when I arrived home, so I spent some time in the mall. I went outside as the sun began to set. As I approached my home, I saw that the only lights on were the ones upstairs in our bedroom. It seemed like they had accepted the bait. I drove into my driveway, turning off the engine and coasting in to avoid drawing attention. I closed the door halfway, then pushed it shut with my hip. I had my camera, rope, and duct tape in a canvas bag to keep it quiet. I gently opened the door and slid inside. I slipped my shoes off and began mounting the stairs. Our bedroom did not have a straight line of sight to the stairs, so no one saw me, but I ascended gently, keeping my ears open for any sound of them. As I reached the top of the stairs, I could hear sounds coming from the master bedroom. I moved carefully to the door and paused. It was nice of Michael to invite me over tonight to keep you company, wasn't it, pet? Ethan exclaimed enthusiastically. Yes, master. It was a big surprise, but I'm not complaining. I cannot get enough of you, sir. Sophia sighed. I miss serving you. If you miss me that much, why not leave Michael? I would want to have you with me at all times. I can't, master. I'm in love with Michael. I don't believe I could manage our relationship all the time, sir. As much as I like you controlling me, I couldn't give up my relationship with Michael. How can you love Michael while yet giving yourself to me? Ethan inquired curiously. I want to keep going because you showed me this side of myself. I could not do this with Michael. He'd call me a pervert, but you made me like this. When you initially pressed yourself on me, I didn't believe you, but now I know. I've discovered I want it, and although Michael hasn't complained about my newfound sexual freedom, I don't believe he understands my need to be controlled and punished. Does this address your question? Yes, I suppose it does. Nobody else will do what we do for one other. I want this to last as long as possible. Do you think Michael suspects anything? Ethan asked. I do not think so. I really hope not. Sophia said, he would divorce me in a heartbeat and probably beat the hell out of you. She paused before saying, no, Michael does not suspect. He slept like a baby last night. Good. How about we take a shower? I enjoy having sex with you in the bathtub, Ethan said. Yes, master, Sophia said, laughing. I heard the rustle of the bedclothes and then the light in the bathroom came on. I crept into the bedroom and prepared my camera. With the light from the restroom, I was able to stand slightly to one side and see everything well. As they began the shower, I took a few photos. Soon, they began having intercourse. It was time to tell my dear brother just how I felt about it. I sneaked inside the restroom, but he must have detected my presence. He began to turn just as my fist struck the side of his skull. He fell like a poleaxe, slamming his skull on the tile floor as he landed. Sophia, oblivious of what had occurred, grumbled in exasperation. What has occurred, master? I leaned over and grabbed her hair, pulled her back so she looked into my eyes. Your master is getting his. I flung her head, and she landed face first in the tub. She backed away from me, and I yelled, shut the hell up. Sophia calmed down, but she shrank away from me and cowered in the bathtub. I picked up the bag from where I had dropped it and pulled out 2 lengths of rope. I used one to bind Ethan's wrists behind his back and another to knot his feet. I pulled out the duct tape and placed a piece over his lips, taking care not to cover his nose. I wanted him calm, not dead. I leaned down and slung his body over my shoulder. I grabbed up my purse and stuffed it into my pocket. Then I turned to confront my soon-to-be ex-wife. Come. I need to show you how your Lord pleads for his life. I brought them into the bedroom and began hitting my soon-to-be ex-brother. I delivered punch after punch. Say my name. Call me master. I continued to beat him until he was begging at my feet. I kicked him in the head and knocked him out cold. I looked at Sophia and remarked, "You wanted a dominant guy in bed. Look, this is what you selected." This piece of trash disgusted me. Sophia, get dressed and gather your belongings. I'll come back for you when I've taken care of him. I began to walk away but turned around because I had one more thing to say. By the way, I hate piercings on women. My wife's weeping echoed in my ears as I went out of the restroom, down the stairs, and to my vehicle. I opened the trunk and threw Ethan inside. He grumbled, but still seemed to be unconscious. The trip to my folks' place was swift but rough, at least if you rode in the trunk. I made sure to hit every bump and pothole, even if it meant driving over the center line. If a policeman had been following me, I would have been hauled over, but luck was on my side. I pulled onto the driveway near the gate leading to the rear. My parents were not home. It was their night out at the VFW. I knew this since it was part of my strategy. When I unlocked the trunk and turned on the light, my ex-cousin's terrified eyes met mine. I threw 3 punches at him and heard him scream. "I hope you enjoyed the ride, you worm." I hauled him out of the trunk, which wasn't easy since he fought until I hit him in the belly. "Quit struggling, you worm, or I'll dump you on the front lawn." The punch and threat got to him and he calmed down, enabling me to hoist him over my shoulder. I opened the gate and walked down the side of the house into the backyard. I slammed him to the grass, not too gently. I grabbed him by the hair and pulled him nose to nose with me. "I'll tell you this once and only once: you will stay away from me. If you see me coming, you will turn and run the other way. Because anytime I see you, I will not kill you, but I will beat you to the edge of your life and then revive you so that I can beat you again. This will continue for the rest of your life. So, if you want to be safe and if you're intelligent, which I doubt, considering you were messing with my wife, you'll leave town. Also, do not try to say." I took the paper I'd prepared from my backpack, affixed another piece of duct tape to it, and put it on Caleb's chest, making sure it was well entrenched in his hair. The message, written by me, instructed my parents to ask Caleb why he was in this state. I wanted to make sure they understood who had done this to him and why. "I'm leaving now, worm, but don't worry. Mom and Dad should be home in another couple of hours. I'm sure they'll find you because tomorrow is trash day and Dad always puts the garbage out at night." I hesitated kicking him in the crotch but ultimately did it anyway. I got home to find Olivia seated in the living room, her luggage by the door. I grabbed both suitcases. "Let's go. We've got a long drive ahead." Olivia raced by me, her eyes wild with panic as she dashed to the vehicle. After placing her luggage in the trunk, I stepped in and drove away without saying anything. "Where are we going?" Olivia inquired uneasily. "Your parents' house." "No, not there," she said. "Shut up. I didn't ask for your input." Olivia cowered against the door, attempting to create as much space between us as possible. Her parents lived about an hour away, and by the time we arrived, it would be late. I was looking forward to waking them awake. If you ignore the sniffling and wailing from the passenger seat, the remainder of the drive was quiet. I was seething the whole time, and her tears did nothing to soothe me. "Would you stop your bawling? It's getting on my nerves, and right now, you don't want to piss me off any more than I already am." She stopped, or, if she did weep, she did it quietly, which I much appreciated. 15 minutes later, I arrived into her parents' driveway. I turned in my seat and stared at my soon-to-be ex-wife. "Let's go. Time to wake good old Mom and Dad." I took the luggage, dropped them on the porch, and leaned against the doorbell. Her father quickly opened the door, followed by her mother. Both of them were wearing pajamas. "Nathan, what the hell are you doing? Why are you ringing the doorbell at this time of night?" He was furious. "Ask her," I said, pointing my thumb over my shoulder. "Olivia, what is this all about?" her father said, puzzled. Olivia put her head on her chest, unable to face her father's gaze. I was becoming impatient. You'd better tell him right now, or I will. And believe me, I'll tell him everything, I said. That caught her interest. She raced to speak before I could finish. I did something bad, Daddy. I need a place to stay, please, she'd said. I intervened since she wasn't explaining what she did. Your daughter needed a man who could dominate her in bed, beat her up in a sexy way, and since her husband wasn't doing that, she got another man. Today, I caught her with that man, who happened to be my own cousin. I beat the crap out of him. I really wanted to give her a lesson in gender equality, but then your daughter isn't worth me spending time in jail, so keep this trash at your place. Before her father could ask me any more questions, I was halfway down the path. Good night, folks, I murmured over my shoulder as I got into the vehicle and drove away. It was 2 to 5 a.m. when I returned home, and I was exhausted. I undressed and slumped on the spare room bed. I had a lot of things to accomplish tomorrow, the first of which was to toss away the bed in the master bedroom. But just now, all I wanted was sleep. I slept fitfully, with thoughts of Caleb and Olivia together running through my mind, forcing me to wake up in cold sweats. Finally, about 5 a.m., I gave up and went downstairs to make coffee. The coffee and some bread helped, but it was all I could stomach. I laughed bitterly, thinking I needed to shed some weight, which it seemed I was going to accomplish right now. I waited sipping coffee until the kettle was empty before heading upstairs to wash, clean, and shave. I dressed and prepared to remove the bedroom furnishings. The phone rang, disrupting my preparations. Nathan, what have you done? My mother shouted. What are you talking about, Mom? Why did you do that to your cousin? I want an answer now. Now I was furious. That ex-cousin of mine had not informed my parents why I had done what I did to him. I was definitely going to fix him now. I'll be right over, Mom. I disconnected up before she could respond. The drive to my parents' home took less time than it should have since I violated almost every traffic regulation along the way. I was out of the vehicle and inside the home in seconds. Where is he? Where is that worm? I demanded. Nathan, my mom shouted. Stop that yelling. I'm not deaf. Who are you looking for? That no-good ex-cousin of mine. Where is he? He's still at the hospital with your father. Damn. I yearned to get my hands on him. I was still infuriated. Don't you think you've done enough already, she said bluntly. Why did you do it, Nathan? Answer me. Done enough? No, Mom. I haven't done nearly enough to him, not yet, I haven't. I gave him a chance to come clean last night, and it's obvious he wormed out of telling you what is done. So now it's my turn. I'll make him tell you what is done. You will not touch him, Nathan. I will not have you terrorizing him. Now, if you have something to say, you'd better say it, or you can leave. You want to know why I did it? Okay, I'll tell you why. I caught Caleb and Olivia having sex last night, in my bed, in my bathroom, and it wasn't the first time either. I was shivering, and I was so upset. He tried to make me out to be the bad guy. That's impossible, my mom cried. Caleb wouldn't do that. He loves you and Olivia. He loves Olivia, that's for sure. My mother's surprised expression indicated me she still didn't believe me. And I've got pictures to prove it, too. Pictures, she inquired, puzzled. Yes, Mom, I've got pictures and video. I knew something wasn't right, and then I overheard a conversation between the two of them last night. I set them up and caught them in the act. I took plenty of pictures and some video, so I'd have the evidence I need when I divorce that woman I'm married to. I told Caleb I never wanted to see or speak to him again, and I expected him to tell the truth. Obviously, he didn't, so I had to. I'm sorry, Mom, but it's the truth. It can't be, she said, astonished. Caleb. Why would he do that? I don't know, Mom. All I know is that he did. I let him stay in my home, and this is how he repays me. I don't know how long they've been together, but it's been at least 6 months, probably more. I trusted him, Mom. I trusted him. Oh, Nathan, I'm so sorry, son. Mom held me and I lost it. I grieved on her shoulder for all I had lost, including my wife, marriage, and cousin. We sat there for a few minutes, her massaging my back and saying her love to me. She escorted me to the kitchen, where she served me a cup of coffee. I drank my drink quietly, head down, and stared into the cup. She patiently waited for me to settle down. She'd touch my hand and sigh deeply, knowing she couldn't do much to relieve my anguish. Finally, when the cup was empty, I felt calm enough to proceed. "Sorry about that, Mom," I said, mortified. "Don't be silly, Nathan. You needed to get that out of you. Obviously. I'm just sorry you had to, that's all." She hesitated, unsure if she should ask what was on her mind. "So what are you going to do? What about you and Olivia?" "I took Olivia to her parents' place last night. I'm going to divorce her," I informed her. "Divorce? Are you sure, Nathan?" "Olivia loves you," she said strongly. "Yeah, right. Olivia loves me, all right. She loves me so much she sleeps with my cousin." "Nathan!" Mom yelled. "I will not have you using that kind of language, no matter how angry you are." "I'm sorry, Mom. It's just that every time I think about last night, I get so angry." "I'll try not to swear, Mom." I did mean it. I had never used such words in front of my parents, ever. "I'm sorry, Mom, but I can't abide what Olivia has done. It's as simple as that. It was bad enough that she cheated on me, but to do it with a member of my family, my own cousin, that's unforgivable." "What about your cousin, Nathan?" "His family," Mom asked softly but firmly. "Not anymore, not to me. My cousin died last night. The cousin I grew up with, the kid I protected from bullies, the one who asked me to take him into my home, wouldn't do what he did to me. He proved to me that he's no longer the cousin I knew, so he's dead to me. I never want to see or speak to him again." "Nathan," she said, astonished. "I mean it, Mom. I told him last night, and I'm telling you now, if I see him again, I'll beat him again." My expression told her I was serious. "But Nathan, his family," Mom said. "Not to me, he's not. Look, I understand he's your nephew, but so am I. I never want to see him again. I don't want to hear his name. If you can't do this for me, Mom, then you'll have only one son. If he's here, I won't be. That's the bottom line." I rose from the table, kissed her on the cheek, and left. When I went home, I cleaned the bedroom. The bed was the first to go, but I eventually emptied the whole room. I phoned a nearby charity and gave the whole thing to them. Perhaps someone will find it enjoyable, as I did not. I relocated my belongings to the other bedroom and placed the remaining of Olivia's belongings in rubbish bags, putting them in the garage until she could get them. I went to the hardware shop and purchased new lock sets since I had not received Olivia's keys last night. I had taken a week off to catch them, so having to be at work wasn't an issue, thank goodness, since I was pretty much worthless for anything that required mental acuity. I contacted a friend who had just gone through a divorce to obtain the name of his lawyer. He'd done well, or at least he hadn't complained too much about his lawyer, so I decided to hire the same one. I obtained the name and scheduled an appointment for later that day. I carried my photos and videos on a thumb drive, but I also printed some just in case. The lawyer informed me that the images and video would probably help the divorce go more smoothly since he was certain her counsel would not want the footage disclosed in court. He promised to make out the documents the following day and serve her as quickly as possible. The last item was the deposit, which depleted my bank account and irritated me even more. It was costing me money since my wife and cousin ripped me off. It just didn't seem fair. When I returned from the lawyer's office, there were 10 messages on the machine. I thought some of them would be from Olivia and the rest would be from individuals I didn't want to speak to, so I ignored the flashing light but switched off the ringers on all the phones to avoid being annoyed. I opened some canned soup and sat down in front of the television. I'm not a drinker, more's the pity, so I didn't get drunk enough to forget. I tried to stay busy, but it wasn't working out. I watched a lot of television, but I couldn't remember what was on. I took a sleeping pill, the suggested dose, because I hadn't gotten enough sleep the night before and didn't expect to get much today. I was happily asleep immediately after laying down, but my dreams did not allow for much rest. All I could think of was Caleb plowing Olivia and both of them laughing at me. I awoke in a cold sweat a few of times, but I managed to get a few more hours in before dragging my miserable buttocks to the shower to start the day. After 2 days of sulking around the house, I returned to work. I couldn't handle sitting around and pondering. I found myself mulling over and over what I had done to deserve this treatment from Olivia and Caleb, and I was getting nowhere. I couldn't think of any reasonable explanation. I honestly didn't think Olivia would ever cheat on me. No way. We were really happy, or so I thought. Why Caleb did this was even more perplexing. I'd been his closest buddy, as he was mine, since we were children. I never felt he had any appeal to Olivia other than as a cherished cousin-in-law. Of course, what concerned me more than the sex, which was horrible enough, was the lady I loved and my own cousin betraying my confidence. And it is what I discovered I could not forgive. I was also perplexed by the nature of their infidelity. I think you never truly know your family's sexual preferences, you don't talk about them over dinner. So, Caleb may have always been interested in controlling women. It was unclear why he chose my wife to dominate. Perhaps he sensed something in her that suggested she'd be open to his approaches. As much as I didn't want to know the specifics of their affair, I'd saw and heard enough to last a lifetime. I did want to know why she got engaged with him in that way. Despite my interest, I wasn't ready to speak directly with Olivia yet. She'd left multiple messages on the machine imploring me to forgive her, apologizing profusely, and offering all of the standard explanations you hear from a cheating spouse after they've been discovered. I contacted my mother and asked her to inform Olivia that she could pick up the rest of her clothing and belongings from the garage on Sunday, since I planned to be gone all day. Mom expressed her unhappiness with me, but eventually consented to send my message forward. I left the house extremely early, 6 to 5 a.m., to prevent Olivia finding me at home. I returned long after midnight for the same reason, even driving by the home with the lights turned off to ensure there were no vehicles in the driveway or garage. Thank God for wireless door openers. As I opened the rear door, I saw a message affixed to the glass. It came from Olivia, of course. I had to give her credit, she was going to contact me at any time she could. I tore the letter from the glass and debated whether to read it or toss it away. The trash can won. 3 months after that dreadful night, I was finally calm enough to contemplate meeting Olivia. She'd moved out of her parents' house since the travel to work was too lengthy, and she got a studio apartment in a neighboring city. At least that's what my mother told me. I understood why my mother maintained touch with Olivia. She was the daughter my mother had never had, and they had always gotten along well. Mom was almost like a second mother to Olivia, they were so close. I also had to give my mother credit, she didn't bother me about Olivia. She inserted subtle clues and other pieces of information into our chats, such as the one about Olivia having an apartment. I ignored them, not satisfying her with a response, and she kept chatting as if nothing was wrong. It was a fascinating game that we played. I also have to note that she and my father honored my request about Caleb. I was pleased that no one mentioned him to me while I was at their house. They must have passed the news to our extended family as well, since I never heard any remarks from them, at least not while I was around. I once overheard my aunt questioning my mother about Caleb, but as soon as I made my presence known, they both climbed up. I smiled and said, thanks, as I went by, allowing them to continue their talk in peace. So, on one of my trips, as I was about to depart, I begged my mother for a favor. Mom, I need a favor. Of course, honey. What can I do for you? She said hopefully. I need you to contact Olivia for me. Oh, Nathan, I'm so happy, she said. Hold on, Mom, hold on. I'm not taking her back. I've just decided that I need to hear her out before the divorce becomes final, that's all. Despite what she's done, she deserves a chance to tell me why she did it. Ask her to meet me at the Taverna on Oak Ridge Road at 5-5 on Sunday. If she can't make it, ask her to leave a message on the machine. The Taverna? You can't have a private conversation there, it's too loud, she said incredulously. It's also very public. I don't want her going into the gory details of her affair, and having a bunch of families with kids around should stop any inclination she might have to brag. I just want to know why, not how. If she can't meet me where I want to meet, then to hell with her. I was becoming upset again, which was not a good indication. Calm down, honey. You don't have to get upset. I'm sure Olivia will talk to you any way you want. She's not going to brag, Nathan. She's very embarrassed about what she did. She's apologized to me for driving a wedge between my sons, and I've forgiven her. I hope you can find a way to forgive her too. It's not good to carry the kind of anger you've been carrying, son. You can forgive her all you want, I don't give a damn. It depends on what she has to say to me. If she can't give me a reason that I can accept, then how can I forgive her? Even if I do forgive her, it's not going to make a difference in our marriage. It's over. It died that night. It died a horrible death when I heard them, saw them, and it's not going to be resurrected. I know you don't want to hear that, Mom, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I don't want you. There was stillness on her side. I knew it. Mom, it's so easy to give a lecture when you're not the victim. All right, Nathan. When I talk to her, I'll tell her just what you said. I hope what she tells you will allow you to move on. I think you're doing the right thing, honey. You two need to talk at least once before you end your marriage. She kissed my cheek as we embraced farewell. Good night, Mom, I replied, closing the door behind me. Despite my best efforts to stay cool, I was quite apprehensive. It was the first time I'd seen Olivia since that night. How was I going to react? I had chosen the location for more than just the reason I had informed my mother. I chose it in the hopes that it would stop me from engaging in crazy behavior that may land me in prison. I wasn't sure whether it would work, but I assumed it would. I was not the kind of man to cause a commotion at a restaurant, particularly one with children around. I arrived at 4:40 and informed the hostess that I'd want a table for two, non-smoking, but the other party hadn't yet arrived. She said she would seat us as soon as my party came. I was waiting at the door when Olivia entered. She was dressed casually in a pristine cotton top, blue trousers, and shoes. Her hair was pushed back from her face and she wore little makeup. She looked fantastic, as she usually did. Olivia, I said. Nathan, she said, offering me a hesitant grin. Our table is ready, I said, motioning to the hostess. We were placed near the windows, away from other diners but still audible if we became too loud. The hostess handed us our menus and departed. Nathan, Olivia began. Please, I interrupted. Let's eat first. I don't want to ruin my meal, and I have a feeling this conversation isn't going to be conducive to good digestion. Sorry, Olivia apologized. We looked over the menu, and by the time we made a selection, the server came. We placed our orders and waited, mainly silently. We didn't speak much since we couldn't think of anything to talk about that wasn't boring. The food came swiftly and was consumed quietly. I was truly sad. Before this catastrophe, we could speak about anything. Olivia was a really clever conversationalist, and I enjoyed engaging her. We did not always agree, but we always had a good time. I ordered coffee for both of us, but when it came, the stillness remained. I thought it was up to me to start. Why did you sleep with my cousin, Olivia? I inquired simply. Olivia breathed heavily. She had been anticipating this moment all evening, but it didn't make it any easier to begin. I'm so sorry, Nathan. I don't know what got into me. I know what, or who, got into you, I growled, leaning in so she could hear me, and I want to know why. Olivia backed away, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry, Nathan. I'm so sorry, she said quietly. We've established that you're sorry, Olivia. It's too damn late for sorry. There should have been no situation where you had to be sorry. It's way past the time for sorry. I looked into her eyes, waiting to see how she would respond to my next words. By the way, how long were you sleeping with Caleb? You would have thought I smacked her on the face. Her eyes widened as she breathed deeply. Her mouth opened and closed many times, but no words emerged. It's not that hard a question, Olivia. How long? She eased down, but the flush that crept up her neck told me I wasn't going to like the answer. A year, she said cautiously. My jaw fell, and I was left dumbfounded. 1 year. She'd been sleeping with my cousin for a year, and I hadn't realized until a few weeks before the end. Guess the old cliches are true, the spouse is the last to know. I see, I said, trying not to react as forcefully as I wanted to. The restaurant had become more crowded by this point, which dampened my mood. I know you want a reason why I cheated, but I really don't have a good one, Nathan. It wasn't a decision I made one day. I didn't wake up and tell myself that today I was going to cheat on my husband. Olivia drank her coffee, giving herself time to think. It was just innocent flirting at first. Caleb always flirted with me, and you didn't seem to mind. That's when I thought it was innocent fun. That's when I thought my cousin and my wife were just family. I never contemplated that either of you would do what you did. I know, she cried. She looked down at the table but continued to speak. One day, he caught me up against the kitchen sink when I had my hands in the water. When he touched me, he was so rough. I screamed at him, but he just kept it up. He took what he wanted, and all of a sudden, it was like a switch had been thrown in my brain. I wanted what he was doing, and I had no control over my body. I gazed at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. I didn't want to believe I could react the way I did to that kind of treatment, but I did. Even later, after he'd left for the day and I was alone, I wanted more of what he'd done to me. No matter how angry I was at myself for what I'd done, no matter how ashamed I was for cheating on you, I wanted it. It was like I was a junkie, and I needed my next fix. I kept going back for more, despite my efforts to fight it. I don't know what else to say, Nathan, except I'm so. I had an answer, but it wasn't what I was expecting. It was worse than I'd imagined. Her explanation made me believe that our marriage was finished. If she was, as she said, addicted to that kind of therapy, we had little chance as a marriage. I couldn't bear the thought of another guy flipping that switch in her head and subjecting me to the torment I'd been living in since that night. Thank you, Olivia. I know that had to be hard for you. I appreciate your honesty. I can't say I understand, but I can at least accept your explanation, I murmured gently, trying to keep my emotions in control. Is there any hope for us, Nathan? I love you so much, she cried, her voice shaking. Are you kidding me? I guess you do. I just can't see how you can do what you've done and still claim to love me. Even if I believed you loved me, I couldn't accept your actions. I may have stopped you from continuing your affair with Caleb, but I can't live with the fear that some other man might come along someday and give you what I know I cannot. I'm sorry, Olivia, but that's the way I feel. I understand, Nathan. I had to try. I just had to, she sobbed, retrieving a tissue from her handbag and wiping her tears. Thank you for meeting with me, Nathan. I never meant for any of this to happen. You have to believe that. But I know I brought this on myself. I'm ashamed that I was so weak and let it destroy our marriage. I am too, Olivia. I really am. I'm going to miss you, but we both know it's not going to work for us. I forgive you, Olivia. I forgive you. My voice softened as I sniffled, a little caught up, but I forced a little grin. We parted ways, both knowing that we would not remain in contact. She wished me well and kissed me on the cheek before we parted ways. The divorce was completed almost a year after that horrific night. We sold the home and divided the earnings. We reached an agreement on the settlement well before the hearing, which was only a formality. A few weeks later, I received the final decree in my new flat. I've been quite wary of women after the divorce. I've been on a couple dates, but nothing meaningful. I settled into a routine. I worked, went to the gym to release tension, and then went home. Day by day. Month by month. It's not a horrible life, but it's not what I had planned for myself 2 years ago. I guess you're wondering whether I ever forgiven my cousin. Never. I saw him once at my parents' home. My father had to hold me down while Caleb fled the home. It has occurred twice so far. I landed a couple blows the last time I saw him. I have kept my word. I've stopped visiting my parents without notice because I don't want to wind myself in prison. I know I can't look at him without feeling angered by his behavior. It's simpler for me to recall him as my younger cousin, the boy I adored like a brother, than as the guy I discovered in my house that night. Family relations are still strained, but no one dares bring it up with me. Have I forgiven Olivia? No. I'm a vengeful guy. After the divorce and asset division, I shared all of Caleb and Olivia's photos and movies with our family and friends. I also shared the footage to Caleb's office and Olivia's employer. All three of us are now social outcasts. At family gatherings, none of us are invited. Caleb and Olivia are exempt for obvious reasons, but I am excluded due to an underlying dread. People do not want controversies at their events. I realize I shouldn't have done that, but there's an ancient saying, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Let this serve as a warning to everyone listening or reading. Actions have repercussions. Choose carefully. Thank you for watching. Would you forgive or exact retribution like Nathan? Please share your comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.